Right, after school here. So, just saw the league reveal, and I have fairly I have a collection of feelings about it. First of all, looks amazing. The league mechanic looks really interesting. There's just so much to it. Uh, but anyways, I'm getting ahead of myself. So, if you saw my earlier video, I've been playing Path of Exile for a good long time. I'll just skip over this, but I tend to play a lot of different characters, and because of that, my experience as a player is probably a little bit more like a newer player than a lot of the PoE content creators who are really min-maxing their builds and putting a tremendous amount of currency into them. I don't really do that. I just like to try new things. I like building my own characters, see how they work, build a little system of mechanics that makes them function and feel them progress in strength and power as I play them. And get bored with them, start a new character. That's kind of my style. So we just had the content reveal. If you didn't see it, you should go to the Path of Exile website and watch, because it's pretty exciting, honestly. I'm curious to see how it all works in game, of course, but there's just so much there. The new league will release on the 13th. It's always an exciting time. New economy, everyone's starting from scratch. You can see people, racing ahead, completing the zones, and it's just astounding how fast people can finish the campaign, get into maps, get into the end game, defeat pinnacle bosses. It's really impressive. I'll be releasing my Blight guide, which I'll be using. I always, actually, last number of leagues I've been using it anyways, to build some initial starting currency, items, etc. It's really a good one for me because I tend to experiment with characters. I don't really go with sure thing characters. I try something new, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. So Blight, you really don't need to have a good character to run it. Yeah, it's relatively easy. Some people find it kind of boring, but it's a very effective strategy. So anyways, I'll release that guide sometime before the league launch. I also have my whole game walkthrough, 13-hour walkthrough. I play Witch. I don't Ascend. I use Absolution as my skill, and it just crushes the campaign. I go through every decision I make along the way about selecting my gear, getting my links together, my gems, all the different things I do to have a successful campaign playthrough. So get stuck somewhere during the campaign, you want to check out my guide. That might be helpful to you. If you want to level a witch for this league launch, it's a perfectly viable build to get started with, and after you reach endgame, you can have selected any of the ascendancies. You can respec it into basically anything that you want at that point. So again, hopefully that's helpful for you. As far as this league launch goes, a lot of what people are getting excited about, people who've been playing the game for a long time, might not mean that much to you. If there's changes from previous leagues, if you didn't play those previous leagues, then you might not know what it's all about or why it's important. And it's just not that important. There are so many things. If you read through the patch notes, it can feel kind of overwhelming, like, what does this all mean to us? So for you, if you are newer to the game, I'd really suggest you just focus on finding out a little bit about the league mechanic so that you know what to expect going in. You don't necessarily need to know everything about it, but the game doesn't tend to explain things all that well, and you might struggle with it. I generally do, to be honest. So having a little bit of knowledge about the league mechanic before you go in, I think, is helpful. You don't want to spoil it for yourself, you just want to go in cold. It's totally viable too. And my warning is that right now people are so hungry for a new league. It's been almost a year that they've been waiting. Usually we used to get a league every 3-4 months, 5 maybe, something like that. It's been 10, 11 months, I forget now, but it's a long time. People are so hyped up about this that I guarantee you there'll be a fall off from this sugar high that people are on when they get into the game, and yeah, I don't know, they're not as excited with the reality isn't as exciting as their imagination. So my opinion is to just avoid the forum and Reddit altogether if you can. Emotions run high, people get upset, they kind of get into a mob mentality. Sometimes they're right about things, but sometimes those things they're mad about don't really mean anything to you and how you play the game. So my opinion is just play the game, enjoy it for yourself or not, and avoid the drama unless that's your thing. It's up to you. So my starting builds, Chieftain, Frostblink, Ignite. So this is a pretty weird choice. Again, I don't really play the traditional builds. I like just to experiment with things that seem like they're fun. I tested this for the previous league, leveled up a new Chieftain, and I tried this out, and it works. It's fine. It's really a fun character to play. It isn't giga strong for sure, and it's really not good for bosses like at all. But it's a great mapper. So if you want to run tier 16s back to back, just run through them quickly, destroying everything that's in them, pick up the loot. This is a pretty good character. There's basically, as far as I can tell, no changes with this new patch. I didn't see anything in there that would affect this build. I may have missed something. I didn't look super closely, but from what I saw, there's just nothing there that affects it. So this build, Frostblink Ignite, is normally played as a Witch Elementalist. That's the Ascendancy Elementalist, and it's because of this node, Shaper of Flames. And I'll just show you over here in Path of Building. Get a new character here. It's a Witch, an Elementalist, just so the tree is highlighted here. And this is the Ascendancy tree for Elementalist. Shaper of Flames is incredibly popular node, especially for starting builds. Hits always ignite, all damage can ignite, 25 more damage with ignites. Okay, all good things. Basically, any kind of damage you do can potentially cause an ignite, which creates a fire damage over time, a dot, and it's 25% more. It's a multiplier. 25% more is significant. That's a significant boost to the damage otherwise, and you wouldn't have it. Actually, I can even show you. I will go to my Chieftain, my Frostblink Chieftain, right? So I can't take this node because I'm not a witch and I'm not an elementalist. But if I hover over the node, it will show me if I was able to take this node, how it would change my character. And you can see it's just a straight up 25% increase to my Ignite DPS. That's very significant. And so that's why most people would use the Elemental Ascendancy with Frostblink Ignite. Okay, so that's how it was. This is the old tree, 3.25. Patch notes, change that node. It no longer has that 25% more damage. So it's still a fine node because you always get Ignite, which you really would like for a build like this or a lot of Ignite builds, but you lose that 25% more damage. That's pretty significant loss. It's like a gem leak, basically. And then it also now causes enemies ignited by you to convert 40% of their physical damage to fire. That's just, I don't know, seems totally weird to me. But I guess it's good because building defenses against physical is actually a lot harder than elemental. So if you're converting 40% of their physical, you're actually reducing the amount of damage they're going to do to typical build. So I guess it's a defensive, but I don't know. It just seems kind of weird to me. Anyways, that has no effect on our chieftain Frostblink ignite build. So it's something I'll try. Is it going to be the first build I do? I don't know. I think the first build might be this Death's Oath. It's an Occultist, and I always try to put our Akali's Fang on a build, even if it's kind of ridiculous and doesn't make any sense. In this case, it actually kind of does work. Now, Death's Oath is a body armor, and it does chaos damage over time. It creates an aura called a Death Aura. They buffed it, actually, which is kind of weird. They ignored it for years. And finally, in this patch, they buffed it. So it does 1250 chaos DPS as a dot. Oh, compared to 1,000. So that's 12.5%, I guess. If I know how to do math. It's not a lot. It's some, but it was already pretty weak. Death's Oath is really not very popular because it's just not very strong. And now it's slightly stronger than fairly weak. Does not make it great. As Gazi mentioned in his stream, 5 times as many people will be playing Death's Oath now. So instead of 2, we're going to have 10. This is just not a popular build, and not many people play it, but those who do, they really like it. So anyways, I tested this in 3.25 with a new character, leveled it up, and I didn't get to the final form, but it actually feels pretty good. It's not bad. Again, just like the first build, it's going to be a tier 16 mapper. It's not particularly good with bosses, and even tougher monsters on T16s can be kind of problematic for it. Character I built has extremely terrible defenses, so I'm going to convert it over to more of a maxed block kind of a build, which I think will be helpful. I still don't know how tanky this build really will be the way it's put together, or at least the way that I know how to put it together. As far as single target, it kind of doesn't have anything. I tried Hex Blacks, which didn't get nerfed this time around, I don't believe. And Essence Drain actually got buffs. That's another chaos skill. Again, it was sort of like Death's Oath, where it was bad before, and now it's somewhat buffed. So is it going to be just slightly better than bad, or is it actually going to be good? I really don't know. So we'll see how it goes. And the rest of this is just my notes for things I might do with the character. Third character I would really want to try is something armor stacking, and I'd like to use Cyclone. Cyclone actually got buffed. Increased damage effectiveness, movement speed, and area of effect with melee strike range. So they buffed it. I don't know how strong it was actually before. I haven't played it in literally years. But this is something that I want to try out. Because we have these interesting items here. Replica Dream Feather or Perseverance. And let's see, I think I have these up here. Yeah. So Replica Dream Feather is a sword. And it has this line, 1% increased attack damage per 450 armor. Well, we can build a lot of armor. So a lot of armor divided by 450 is actually quite a lot of increased attack damage. And for most of the builds that I've seen that use this, they actually use 2. So one-handed swords, they use 2 swords, so it's going to be 2% per 450 armor. So that's quite a lot of added damage. So it feels like scaling damage with this would be relatively easy, and you're doing it off armor, so you're building your defense, which is simultaneously building your damage. So that sounds like a pretty good combination to me. Another way to go is with this belt, Perseverance. It's 1% increased attack damage per 200 of the lowest of armor and evasion. So it sounds a little problematic because you're going to have to build armor and evasion, and whichever is lower is going to be your damage scaler. But most people building this build actually build evasion anyways, and then they use a keystone called Iron Reflexes to convert evasion to armor. So even though it sounds like you're kind of splitting your focus on two different things, you would generally do it with an armor stacker anyway. And if we look at the path of building again, it's the wrong character, but Iron Reflexes here. Converts all evasion rating to armor. Dexterity provides no bonus to evasion. Okay, so it's just going to convert any evasion you have built in your character into armor. And so it's kind of a normal node that would be taken for armor stacking either way. So I'm not sure which way I'll go with this, but there's some interesting possibilities there. Okay. A herald build. I always try to build a herald build. There's nothing new to talk about there. This past league, Viper Strike of the Mamba was extremely powerful poison build. You could build it with Occultist or Pathfinder. I think there's a couple of different classes and ascendancies that you could choose. It uses the Perfect Agony keystone, which I kind of thought this would get nerfed because, at least from what people are saying, extremely powerful. And so Perfect Agony, damage over time multiplier for ailments equal to critical strike multiplier. So instead of building dot multi to create your damage for your poison, you build critical strike multiplier. And we have lots of ways of doing that, so you can get a lot of crit multi, and that's just going to go to your damage over time multiplier. So it's kind of an interesting build. I've never done it before. It's completely out of the normal thing that I do, but I might give it a try because it sounds kind of interesting. Always good to try some new things. Anyways, I didn't see that it got nerfed in any way. I might have missed it, but we'll see. So minions, love minions. So here are some of the changes to minions that I made note of. I didn't make note of everything, just the things that kind of mean something to me. First of all, animate guardians do not lose their gear on death. This used to be a kind of an issue, kind of not an issue. People would put very expensive items on their animate guardian. It's a type of minion. You give it items to use, and those items kind of determine what sort of a thing it is, what it does for you. So if you're putting a lot of really expensive items on a minion, if that minion gets killed, those items are gone forever. So it's a big risk. Although it wasn't, because if you're going to use an animate guardian with expensive items, then you'd make them extremely tanky so that you basically didn't have to worry about them dying. Sometimes there'd be bugs or glitches in the game that would cause them to die and you'd lose your gear, and it's just not a good feeling at all. So now that they don't lose their gear, that's pretty huge. You can start using them basically from level 1. Just put on any old random thing you had if you were leveling a minion build, and have the advantage of running Animate Guardian just from the beginning of the game, or as soon as you get the gem anyways. So that's pretty cool. I mean, it won't do that much for you in the campaign, but it's not nothing. So it's kind of cool. Skeleton of Mages. The way of turning your skeletons into mages. They cast spells. Now 20% chance to inflict ailments. So they cast fire, cold, and lightning, I believe. So all those ailments can be inflicted now by the mages. Um, I'm just guessing that this is really a big buff to them. They didn't cause ailments before. It seems like that's kind of the point of having an elemental mage. I don't know. Just, I mean, they would do damage, but this sounds actually pretty cool. So, I don't know. We'll see how this works out. It might be a pretty good build for this league. So next, all the golem stuff, and there's a lot here. So Elementalist used to be the ascendancy that people used when they would play golems, because it had a couple of ascendancy nodes that were especially powerful and kind of, you know, not replaceable by anything else in the game. It's like you'd kind of have to go Elementalist if you wanted to play golems. So just to show you what it looks like in the current league, and we can compare that to what has changed. Again, up here in Elementalist, so you've got the Liege of Primordial, 100% increased buff effect, +1 to golems, 1 extra golem, and then they're resummoned after 4 seconds after they were killed. So the auto resummon is kind of like the Animate Guardian thing, where depending on your build, this could be actually really important. But generally, if you're building a minion build and you're using golems, you're going to build them very tanky. So are they really dying anyways? And can you really afford them to be dead for 4 seconds if they're primary skill that you have? I don't know. I haven't played a golem build in a long time because they have not been good. So anyways, this was Gold Node, and then also Elemencer, which they're immune to elemental damage. 25% increased buff of effects granted by your golems per summoned golem. So if you had 10 golems, that would be another 250% buff effect. Okay, so 100 buff effect there. If you had 10 golems, I don't know, that's a lot. I don't know if you'd actually get 10, but if you did, it's 250. And then an extra golem there on the tree. Now, Elemencer is gone. You don't have this node at all anymore. Replaced with something completely different. And Liege of the Primordial, or Liege, yeah, Liege of the Primordial. 2 golems instead of 1. Okay, so they combine the +1 from each of the previous nodes into 1. That's good. Less ascendancy points for the same benefit. Golems are immune to elemental damage. Okay, that's good, because we had that on one of them before. But that's it. So, alright. We don't have to take Elemencer anymore, because it doesn't exist. But we lose all of that buff effect, and that is huge. That's kind of like the part of the point of golems is to be like mini aura buffs for you or for other minions. So if you're losing, you know, maybe up to 300% of the golem buff effect from the ascendancy, what purpose do they serve? I don't know. It's kind of a weird one to me. You lose the auto resummon, like, I don't know if that matters so much. If you were using these golems as like a utility, and they're just sort of a buff that if they're alive, then great, and if they were dead, then well, they'll come back in 4 seconds and be a benefit again, but they're not your main skill. I guess those are the characters where they might be useful. But now, without the buff effect, what are you using them for? They're not really utility anymore. So that's weird. Okay, so then you have to spend as many ascendancy points because there's not as many to take. But then in the Elementalist, what do you take if you're playing a golem build? Like, right? You've got this Bastion of Elements, which is actually an okay defensive node. It's not considered to be great, but it's okay. It's this little cool little bubble around you. Absorbs some damage. That's nice. We've got Shaper of Storms. Okay, hits always shock. So, are we using this with golems, though? I don't know. Shaper of Winter, same thing. Are we using that with golems? I'm not sure. I don't think that's usually what's done. Or could be. Yeah, I don't know. I just feel a little lost with where exactly we're spending our points if we're playing golems. Or if it's even viable. If it is, I don't get it. Alright. So, huge changes there, but I don't exactly know what it adds up to. It's kind of weird. Maybe someone clever will figure it out. One thought I did have was, since it's just one node now, if you're an occultist or a necro, you can use a combination of jewels called the Forbidden Flame, Forbidden Flesh, that grant you an ascendancy point from another one of the ascendancies. So if you ascended as occultist, you could get these 2 jewels that would give you Liege of the Primordial. So you could then have your utility golems, I guess. Or if you're a necro, I think probably more realistically, then you could get the golems as your utilities to supplement your other minions, and you probably already built a lot of tankiness for your minions with a build that's a necro. So that's where maybe it makes more sense. But the whole thing just feels really weird to me. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm missing something. Okay, changes to the golems. Stone golems now grant 20% increased defenses. So stone golem normally just provides life regen and they taunt. So it's somewhat defensive. It's kind of cool, especially during the campaign. 20% increased defenses. If this is global, that seems like a lot. And I'd kind of understand why they wouldn't want to give you, 200, 300% golem buff effect, because that would be pretty massive. This is a 20% increased defenses. I don't know. We'll see how that plays out, but that could be a fairly significant defensive buff in some circumstances. We'll see. Alright, so Carrion Golem of Scavenging does some more damage. I don't know if anyone really used that. Chaos Golem gives you now 17% chaos resistance instead of the 5% physical damage reduction that it used to have. That's not going to be well received because physical damage reduction was difficult to build. So having a golem that could give that to you. If you were a minion build or using it as utilities, that was pretty cool. That was a nice buff to have. So 70% chaos resistance is okay, but you can get that in a lot of different ways. Getting the physical damage reduction is not that easy. So it's a loss, I think, for most people. And then it gives you 16% to dot multi, which is okay, but I'm just trying to think about what's the application here. Like, who's actually using this? What build would this actually work for? I do not know. Chaos Golem of the Maelstrom. Maelstrom? Okay. Inflicts significantly more wither stacks. That sounds pretty good. And then also quality gives it increased effective withered. So if you're a chaos dot build, this may actually be worthwhile. I guess it sort of means significantly more. So we don't really have enough information to know if it's good. So your chaos dot build using golems as utilities, but you're not elementalists. It's just like, I don't see how these things are adding up exactly. Okay, Flame Golem, 29% increased damage versus 20, and 20% increased AoE. That's pretty good. It's not bad. Again, it's like, who's using this exactly though? Who's keeping what build is going to benefit from that? That's going to have a build that will keep this alive. I mean, it's a small bump if you have if you've got a minion build, I guess. I don't know. Flame Golem of the Meteor. Meteor skills do more damage. I don't know if anyone, I never saw a build using this skill, so is 30% more damage good? I have no idea. I think someone will try, we'll find out. People experiment with it. Ice Golem gives more increased critical strike, which is nice. Maybe someone would actually use this. And it gives 420 flat accuracy versus 30% increased accuracy. So I guess if you had a build that wasn't taking any flat accuracy anywhere, that might be enough, versus 30% would only really work if you had flat accuracy from somewhere else. So it might be a little more efficient, but again, who's using this? A ranger? How's a ranger using this? I guess I don't get it. Alright, so I guess the accuracy and the critical strike would help with other minions, if it affects other minions. Just all feels weird to me. Lightning Golem increased attack and cast speed at 1%. I don't know, I might not have edited that correctly. It seems ridiculous. 1% increase. And then it gives you mana regen, which is, I guess that's okay. That's nice. That's slightly helpful. So they've turned these into fairly static, unscalable utilities, these golems. Because where are we getting buff effect? So I think this jewel gives you 30% increased effective buffs granted by your golems. So you could stack that. But what else do you get? Increased attack and cast speed? Golems do, though. Okay, so that's okay. But are we really playing a golem build? I don't know. And they give some armor. That's nice. So how much buff effect could we really build realistically without, you know, really compromising? It's a big investment to make these golems valuable enough that you'd really want to use them. The whole thing just feels strange to me. In any case, I don't know what's going on with this, and maybe I'm not understanding something, but all golem thing feels to me like practically just deleted. Golems would be good for the campaign. They get you through the campaign, but in probably into white maps and yellow maps, I bet in nearly every build they're going to start dying. Red maps, they're not going to live. Unless you are a pure minion build and you've built extremely tanky minions. And then I guess they're somewhat helpful. But if you're a necro, then I guess you're using the Forbidden Flame Flesh to get the Liege of the Primordial out of the Elementalist. I guess that's a way you could go. I bet some people will do that. But it seems like a very narrow application, and golems were kind of were not great before, to be honest, but they were more flexible in what you could do with them. Now, yeah, I'm not so sure. Well, anyways, Gazi seems to be pretty excited about skeletons this time around. You don't know his channel, you should check it out. His builds. He is heavily into minion builds, and I think they're generally considered to be pretty good. I haven't tried one in a long time, but it certainly is his specialty. This animate guardian not dying on death is pretty cool. And if there's other good things from minions, some of the skills were altered. so they might be more viable than they were before, but they weren't really skills that I use, so I don't have much to say about them. In any case, I'm pretty sure I'm going to start with my Occultist Death Oath with our Fang. Bunch of spiders running around, the Death Aura. It's just a really cool build. It's not that strong. The items, well, our Fang, you never know, but Death Oath's almost never expensive because it's just not very good. And you have to kind of put a lot into the build to make it useful at all. That's not really what I want for the most part, but it's fun, so why not? This Chieftain, Frostblink Ignite, it's pretty tempting too. That's definitely the safer bet for me, but we'll see how it goes. In any case, I hope this was interesting, helpful to you. Check out my other content. The Blight guide will be out soon. The whole walkthrough is there in case you need some help trying to figure out this upcoming league. As far as I know, nothing in the campaign has really changed. I think one quest somewhere changed. So the walkthrough should be perfectly viable even though it was done in 3.25. Hope you have a great league experience and good luck.